today we're going to begin with Parshas Noach. Noach, the Torah says, is a tzaddik in his generation, and the rabbis are fairly conflicted what that means, that he is a tzaddik in his generation. And let's start with a first source passage from a selection from Talmud Brachos that says something very important. It says only 3 people are called avos, are called fathers: Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The meaning is more than who the 3 fathers are. Who is not part of the 3 fathers? Who is not part of the 3 fathers? Noach. And for that matter, Noach never became a Jew. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov became Jews. They became Jews. What do we call non-Jews today? What's the biblical term for non-Jews?
Goy.
Not a goy. No, it's a convert. What do you call a non-Jew? That what? Noachites. In Hebrew, it's B'nai Noach. B'nai Noach. You see a non-Jew in the street, he's a B'nai Noach. He's a descendant of Noach. You don't have a sheet. Yeah. He's a descendant of Noach. If you want to sit here, you could sit here. If you want to, it's available. It's like really, it's fine. I'll move up. You can. It's really, you should be comfortable. So it's a Ben Noach, which means they're not Jews. Now, if they're not Jews, if Noach was a Jew, then being a Ben Noach would mean you're a Jew, right? So for everything that Noach did, he never became a Jew. And that's what today's class is going to be discussing. Why did Noach not become a Jew and Avram did become a Jew? And therefore, there's something about the descendants of Noach that makes them non-Jews, obviously. There's something about us, descendants of Avram, that are Jews. What is this difference? Okay, there's a lot of difference, but we're going to focus on only one aspect. So, but he is not part of, when we talk about, Kol Yisrael Yeshlam Chelek L'Olam Haba, every Jew has a portion of the world to come, right? That's descendants of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Now, non-Jews can have some limited portion in Olam Haba, but nothing like what a Jew gets. And that is the descendants of Noach, and Noach would be part of that. So what is Noach lacking that he doesn't become a Jew? But on the other hand, the Torah says he's a tzaddik. He's righteous. So he must have done something good. So we want to really focus exactly what was the good he did.
So can't you be can't you be righteous without being a tzaddik?
No, you don't mean to say that. No, tzaddik means righteous.
Yeah, but now how can
can you be a tzaddik without being a Jew?
Yeah.
That's the conundrum we're trying to work out. Okay, that's the idea. We have to figure out what that means.
Surely there's lots of righteous people aren't you?
Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what it means. What does it mean, a righteous Gentile? Right. But they're called Chasidei Umas Olam, righteous Gentiles. What does it mean to be a righteous Gentile? Okay, again, I'm pardoned for the little cramped quarters today, but next week we'll meet in the Shul. Just know next week we'll meet in the Shul. There'll be lots of room. Everyone will have tables and will be comfortable. Okay, so so in other words, in which way was Avram qualitatively different than Noach in terms of his avodas Hashem? Right? What is Noach lacking in connection in terms of an eternal, infinite reality like the Jewish people have? Okay, we have an eternal, infinite reality. The non-Jews don't have that kind of reality. So what's he missing? The standard answer that people give, the standard answer you give, is that Avram was interested in others and Noach wasn't. But that's a little bit difficult to say because the second source says that Noach spent 120 years in the construction of the ark. And he was constructing it to save other people as well. And if other people came by, he would tell them about it. So that makes it a little bit difficult to understand. What's also difficult to understand is the name Noach means rest. It means rest. But if you look at Noach's life, it seems diametrically the opposite of what rest is. Menucha is a sense of rest, but Noach is a person who has no rest at all. He has no rest at all. First of all, he's working 120 years to build this ark, number one. Number two, it seems that in the beginning, the Medrash says in source number 3, he is called an Ish Tzaddik. He's called an Ish Tzaddik, but at the end, he's called an Ish Ha'adamah, a man of the earth. So it seems he's not the same person he started off with being. We also see that the animals didn't give him a lot of respect. In source number 4, when he sent the raven out, the raven refused to go on his mission because he was suspicious that Noach would steal his mate, would fool around with Mrs. Raven. That really shows that, and animals are instinctive. Animals are instinctive. It's not that they, make up things in their minds. There must have been something in Noach's character that was a little bit suspicious. Also, we know that from source number 5, that Noach was extremely busy the whole time. I'm sorry. That Noach was extremely busy the whole time, and he was coughing up blood from all the work. He was busy a whole year taking care of the animals. He wasn't at rest. And we know that the lion wounded him when he came late a little bit. Doesn't sound like a very restful life, and that the animals seem to relate to him as one of their own, as opposed to the respect that a human being should have. You might want to close the door. We don't need to hear the other animals that didn't make it into the teva. Also, another midrash in source 6 says that Noach was miktanei amunah, a person of small faith, because he couldn't believe that Hashem would actually fulfill his decree and destroy the world, and he didn't go into the ark until there was so much water that reached his ankles. He didn't go right into the ark as Hashem instructed him. We also see that what was the first thing that Noach did when he came out of the ark? He planted a vineyard, and he got drunk. And Rashi says the Torah is being critical of him, that he profaned himself in getting involved in making wine as opposed to making bread and things like this. So, this doesn't sound like a man at rest. A man at rest, thinks that everything's calm, he knows who he is. That's just anything further than the truth. What is he? He starts with a tzaddik. Now he's Ish tzaddik and Ish adamah. He's a person that the animals feel are equal to him. So there must be a lot of conflict within who he is. The fact that he was small of faith seems that Noach is a man with a lot of conflict. So why does he have a name of Noach? Peace. Menucha. So how do we understand this? So let's take a look at the first important source number 9 and 10. I have the Rashi in Hebrew and in English. It's a very important Rashi. Come on in. Rashi in English. And this is going to really tell us a lot about Noach. You want to know about a person, we look at the first time he's mentioned and what context he is mentioned. The Torah says, let's start by source number 8. It says, when he was born, it says, and he called his name Noach, saying, this same shall comfort us in our work and in the toil of our hands, which comes from the ground which the Lord has cursed. In other words, God has cursed the land, and this fellow is going to call Noach because he will comfort us in our work. What does that mean? So Rashi, you look at the Hebrew in 9 or the English in 10. He says, this one will bring us ease. He says, will ease us from the toil of our hands. What does that mean? So until Noach appeared, they did not have implements for plowing. If you don't have implements for plowing, then how do you plow? With your hands. Yeah. Well, a plow big field with your hands is a lot of work. No, with your hands, to plow with your hands. Imagine what kind of hands you have at the end of the day, right? And he devised such implements for them. He invented the plow. And the earth would produce thorns and thistles when they would so eat, as a result of the curse of Adam, the first man. Right? When man sinned, God says thorns and thistles, kots v'dardar. But in the days of Noach, it rested from producing an undesirable crop, and they got only desirable crops. This is the meaning of, this one will bring us ease. Yenachamenu. he will bring us ease. Noach needs to bring ease to people. So this is really the Torah's description of why he's called Noach. He brings ease to people. Why does he bring ease to people? He invented the plow. And by inventing the plow, people now could use the plow, not of their hands. And the curse of the earth, of thorns and thistles, stopped. And the people were now at ease from this curse. That's what Rashi says. Has anybody got any problems with this Rashi? We're also acceptant of everything Rashi says. The earth was producing thorns and thistles, right? Why? Because God cursed the earth. Now, just because Noach invents the plow, the curse goes away? What happened to the earth? People were plowing it also just without a plow. They were plowing with their hands, and they must have done a good job or else it wouldn't have plowed properly. Obviously, God punished the earth. Can Noach outsmart God to get rid of the curse by making tools? If God gave a punishment to the earth, it means they deserve the punishment. What would you think is the way to get rid of the punishment? If God punishes the world, how would you think a way to get rid of the punishment? By doing what?
Praying to God.
By praying to God and doing tshuva, not by making farm equipment. If God's upset with you, you're going to make farm equipment, it's going to make a difference? Now, there's also another question. He wasn't the first person to invent machines. He was not the first person. You look at source number 11. It says many years before him, and Zillah gave birth to a child called Tuval-Cain. Tuval-Cain. And what did he do? He was the forger of every cutting instrument of brass and iron. That means he knew how to make metal, to create things. He forged metal. He knew how to make instruments, implements. Tuval-Cain. Right? And then it's interesting, if I have time I'll come back to this, it says, and the sister of Tuval-Cain was Naamah. That's kind of a throw-in. Now, if you look at Rashi over there, this is one of these, what do you call, those questions of little bits of information. What do you call that? Trivia. Okay, trivia question. Who was Noach's wife? Oh, you knew that really good now, huh? Well, was Naamah. Was Naamah. Well, Torah doesn't say it, just as Tuval-Cain's, the sister Tuval-Cain was Naamah, but that also was Noach's wife, which we'll see maybe if we have later, we'll see how that fits in. Anyway, Tuval-Cain was already learned how to fashion metal. So I don't get it. Tuval-Cain is fashioning metal. He doesn't want to make a plow? What was lacking in Tuval-Cain's abilities that we need Noach? They already had technology hundreds of years beforehand. So he's the one who invented the plow. So what's going on over here? Okay, those are all the questions. Now we're going to begin to answer the questions. And let's begin with source number 12, the curse that Hashem did give the earth. Where Hashem said, thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. The curse of thorns and thistles. Question, why was the earth cursed with thorns and thistles? Why was the earth cursed with thorns and thistles? So Rashi says, because the earth did, quote unquote, an Aveira. Now they're going to say the earth can't think. So we'll have to explain in a minute what it means, but first we'll analyze and we'll see what the earth did wrong, and then we'll see what's going on over here. And in source number 13, when God created the earth on the third day and what it's supposed to do, let's see what the command that God gave, and let's see what happened. Every day Hashem said, let this happen, and it happened. Let this be, and it happened. Let's look carefully at source number 13. It says, and God said, let the earth put forth grass, herb yielding seed, now look carefully, and fruit tree bearing fruit after its kind. Okay? God wants fruit trees bearing fruit, wherein is the seed thereof upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, herb yielding seed after its kind, and tree bearing fruit, wherein is the seed thereof after its kind. And God saw that it was good. Now, I've highlighted for you what God wanted from the fruit trees and what the fruit trees did. Do you notice any distinction? God said there should be fruit trees bearing fruit. Right? You see that? Fruit trees bearing fruit. What actually happened? It says, and tree bearing fruit. There's a word missing. Fruit tree. See what's missing? I got it highlighted.
Yeah.
God said, I want fruit tree bearing trees. And what happened? It was just trees bearing fruit, as it were. So what's going on over there? So what's going on is like this. God told the fruit trees that, you know what? If you're an apple tree, I want the tree, the bark, the branches, to taste just like an apple. That's what an eitz peri, a fruit tree. A fruit tree is a tree that's fruity itself. You take Yul Gibbons, Oliver Shalom. Take Yul Gibbons, a big naturalist, who say that many healthy parts of the bark of a tree can be eaten. Okay? And, according, what Hashem wanted is you were hungry and there were no apples, no problem, just rip off a branch. And you'll eat the branch, it'll taste just like an apple. That's what God wanted. He wanted the fruit trees to taste like the fruit. Eitz peri, a fruit tree. But what happened? The trees didn't listen. The earth didn't listen. And it produced trees that gave fruit. When the tree came out of the ground, it did not taste like fruit. It did not taste like fruit. Right? So that was the problem. Now, obviously, the ground and the trees can't think like me and you can think. Because obviously, they don't think. So what's going on over here? What's going on here is that God created a reality that things don't listen to God. You understand? Everything else did exactly as God was told. The moon, the sun, they did what God said. You go up there, you do your job. They did their job. God, as it were, it's not like he's having an argument here, but as it were, he expressed a desire that the earth should produce fruit trees. Did the trees taste fruity? And what happened is they didn't. So that means, not that they were conscious and they could fight against God and that kind of stuff, but God made a command, had a desire that this is the way I really would like the fruit trees to be. I want my world to be so beautiful that even when you don't have a fruit, it's not in season, you can still taste it by just ripping off the branch. And what happens is the tree, as it were, responds by not responding the way Hashem wants it to respond. So from here you get the kernel of the idea of not listening to God. Now,
Rabbi, if the trees can't think and they don't have any understanding, how can they disobey what God has
so again, it's not them. It's not them. I'm just turning off my sound here. It's disturbing. It's not them, but God's creating a reality that people that there is a concept. In other words, if God is so clear, then there's no idea of ever arguing with God. It wouldn't be possible to argue with God. So, if God would tell you to do something, how could you not listen to him? It's so clear. How can you not listen? So God had within the creation of the world a reality as such that you don't have to listen.
You mean the earth had its free will?
Well, then, listen, the earth can't have free will. It only does what
that's
God.
what I'm saying, yeah.
God created an image as if the earth had free will. Not that it really has free will. The earth doesn't have free will. Everything does exactly as Hashem wants it to. But when you look at the Torah, anybody who reads the Torah says, God said he wanted the fruit trees to produce, that the tree should taste like fruit. And now you look at any tree, they don't taste like fruit. You see that not everything as God wanted to comes out, as if to show there is in the spiritual fabric of the universe the ability to not listen to God. That's what's being hinted to with this idea. There is a concept of not listening to God. And that came as a result of what the earth did. So therefore, man who comes from the earth, so he learned from the earth. He looked at the world. He said, hey, I see that the trees didn't listen to God. So he learned from the earth, and that caused him to sin, as it were. So now when God punished man, he punished the earth as well. Now again, it's not that the earth had free will choice, and Hashem's really hurting the earth, but it's the symbolism that the earth produced, and therefore, if it symbolically didn't listen to God, so symbolically it gets punished. And therefore, society, every man now looks at the earth, look at the thorns and thistles. Wasn't supposed to have thorns and thistles. Hashem wanted a beautiful world. But you know what? If you don't listen to God, you get thorns and thistles. And man said, if the earth didn't listen, I don't have to listen. So now I'm not going to listen. Well, Hashem says, listen, you'll be punished, and now that earth you're going to have to deal with. So it's really a punishment to man. But the earth, gets that delayed punishment as well. It's more of a symbolic gesture of what's going on over here. But the real question is, so what did Adam really learn from the earth? What was he really learning with the earth that caused him to sin? And more importantly, how could man have ever sinned? God said, if you eat from the forbidden tree, you will die. Most of us, would listen. Right? When God said it, he meant it. Imagine if you're not supposed to die, mankind was not supposed to die, because if you do this sin, you're going to die. Most people wouldn't do it, so why did he do it? So what I really want to get to today is to what was the actual test of first man. What was this test to not eat from the forbidden fruit? We know that the snake, in trying to convince Chava to sin, he said a very good argument. He said in source 15, he says, for God knows that on the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as God, knowing good from evil. So what's the snake saying? The snake's saying, God doesn't want you to eat from the tree of knowledge. Why? Because you're going to eat from the tree of knowledge, you're going to be wise, you're going to be godlike. You know why God became God? He ate from the tree of knowledge, so he became God. He doesn't want competition. If you eat from the tree of knowledge, you know there's good and evil. Now, question, is the snake lying or telling the truth? The answer is, it must be the truth. So what's the snake really saying to Chava and to Adam as well? And this is the point. The snake is saying to Chava, saying Hashem is telling you not to eat from this tree, not because it's for your benefit, because what's better for a person? To be godlike or not? To be godlike. Is it better to know the difference in good and evil or not? To know the difference in good and evil. Is it better to be wise or not? Better to be wise. So, whose benefit is it for? When Hashem gave you this command, because must be you're a threat to him, and if you're going to listen to him, it's not good for you to listen to him. The Nachash, the snake, was saying, if you're going to listen to God, that's not good for you, because everything about this tree is good for you. It's a wonderful thing. It's going to make you smart. You're going to listen to good and evil. You're going to be godlike. It only has amazing benefits. But you know why God doesn't want you to eat it? Because it's going to diminish God's greatness. Because you will look like him. You will know the difference in good and evil. In other words, what the snake was saying is Hashem is commanding you to refrain from eating the tree of knowledge, not because it's good for you, but because it's good for him. And if you're going to eat from it, you're going to be a threat to him. That's what the snake was saying. So what was the test, therefore? Here is the test. And this has been the test from the first man to the last. The test is a human being able to do something that appears to be inimical to his self-interest for the sake of someone else? The snake was portraying the scenario. God doesn't want you to eat it. But I'm telling you, it's good for you. If you eat it, it's going to be good for you. And good for you, but bad for him. So he's telling you to do what's bad for you, so it's good for him. Is man able to listen to God under those circumstances? Right? And that's man's tension with God. Normally, if Hashem tells you to do something, a person's willing to do it, if it's good for the king, but it's also good for me. The king says to do something. If you do something, I'll reward you. Okay. You know, it was hard what you want me to do. You know, you want me to go out to the war and fight, but you know what? It's good for the kingdom, but it's good for me too. The world will be safer. I'll get paid. Fine. You know, so I'll listen to the king. If I get something out of it, you know, with him, what's in it for me? But if when Hashem tells you to do something that's good for him, but not good for you, are you willing to do it or not? You know? A lot of times we know this as parents. We tell children to do something that may not always be in the child's interest, but it's in the parent's interest. And, you know, the parent says, no, you know, I'd like you to stay and help me. I want to go out with my friends. I need your help. Well, that's not good for me. Right? How often do your kids take out the garbage? How do your kids do chores? Right? You know, if you pay them for it, okay. If they get a benefit. If you take out the garbage, I'll take you for ice cream. Okay, I'll do it because it's good for me. But take out the garbage. Why? Because because I have a hard day. The mother says, I'm making Shabbos. I can't do everything. So the kid says, so why should I do it? Right? Now, well, only when you threaten them, then they have to do it because they don't want to suffer. But will man do something that's not good for him and it's good for somebody else? That was the very first test of the first man. Right? When a person asks you to do something that's no good for you and only good for them, what's your reaction? You don't want to do it. Right? Right? It's selfish, self-centered, all the wrong reasons to do something. Right? You don't think the person likes you. You don't think the person cares for you. You don't think the person loves you. You think the person's taking advantage of you, and therefore your inclination is not to do it. So the test is man willing to do something which is not beneficial to himself and only in God's interest? That was the test, as man saw it. Now that wasn't the truth. The real truth it was in man's best interest not to eat from the tree of knowledge. But the way man saw the situation, he didn't see it that way. And that's exactly the way Hashem wanted the test set up. You know, Hashem did not have to send the snake to first man. But he sent the snake, so the snake would position the situation in order to make it a proper test. If God would have only said, don't eat from the tree of knowledge, and the snake never bugged Adam, he wouldn't eat the tree of knowledge. Comes to Adam, and the snake says, you know what, God doesn't want you to eat the tree of knowledge, because you're going to be smart, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. So Adam says, so why would he not have me want to eat it for all these good things? Because really, he's scared of you. He can't be king anymore if you eat from that. So Adam said, wait a minute, something that's good for me he doesn't want me to have? It's only good for him? Why should I do that? Why? Because God asked you to. I mean, after all, he is God. You do owe him a certain degree of hakaras hatov, gratitude. Yeah, but not for this. And that was the test. And obviously, what do we see about human beings? They weren't able to pass. They didn't pass the test, as man ate from it. So now, what happens? Hashem punishes man. He also punishes the earth. Why? Because man learned this exact type of refusal from the earth. Why? Now you see why the God made the earth produce the way it did. Hashem told the fruit trees to produce trees that tasted like fruit. Now, why? Adam is thinking. He knows that God commanded the trees to produce fruit-like trees. So why did the tree not produce that way? Now think about it if you're a tree. Okay, let's say you're a tree. Okay? You're a tree, you're an apple tree. And the one that made you an apple tree says, when you grow into an apple tree, I want your bark to taste like apples, I want your branches to taste like apples. And what's your greatest pleasure in life is to produce apples. Wow, look, I'm amazed. Look, I'm a tree, I'm an apple tree, I produce apples, and all good things come from the apples, and people every year are looking forward to my apples. But what is the downside for the tree if the branches taste like apples? People will start in the fall chopping away at the branches. And they work their way down to the bark, to the root, and then the tree is gone. No more tree. So the tree says, wait a minute. This command that my bark should taste like the fruit, that's not good for me. It might be good for God because He told me to do it. But why should I do what God tells me to do when it's not good for me?
Because I should know that everything is for the good.
Well, so what do you see? So man observed the tree's behavior. He understood that this objection of the tree exists, and it was able to live on. God didn't strike a thunderbolt and destroy all the trees. So he figures there is an option in life to not listen to God if you feel that it's not in your best interest. So once man followed the example of the tree, so Hashem punished the earth true, because now that the trees acted, had the trees acted as directed, then there would have been a certain sense in creation of doing something that's totally not in your best interest, that's helpful for someone else. Then Adam could have possibly learned the lesson from the tree and not made that kind of mistake. So this is why the earth got punished, as it were, simultaneously with man, because they were involved in the same mistake, which is, should I do something that's only good for someone else, and that's not good for me? So what was Adam really saying to God when he ate from the tree of knowledge? What was he really saying to God? And God said, I'll kill you if you eat it. You know what Adam was saying? Good, go kill me. But don't tell me we have a relationship. You're asking me to do something that's threatening me, with a terrible life, and you're going to threaten me with death unless I totally nullify myself for your sake? You want me to live without being wise, without understanding good and evil? You want me to live this way? You're not going to let me grow and develop? So now you have a choice: to live as a robot, or to stand up against it and even be willing to die. Well, we know how people act. Marshall, seat's right over here. You don't have to stand. Right? So this becomes the rational thing to do on man's part. Man does not want to live under the lie of there being a relationship with Hashem when Hashem is asking you to do things that are not good for you. So now we understand man's sin. We understand the rationale of his refusal. He knows that he's going to die, but he doesn't want to live a total lie, which isn't reality. That was his position. Now, questions on that? You had a question? I answered it? Okay, usually I do. Well, if you're not, you could ask. Don't be shy.
No,
you could ask.
Except Adam was specifically given a punishment. Like, he didn't say to the trees, taste like a tree, or you will be cursed.
Right.
Adam, he said, do not eat from the tree or you will die. But you're saying...
So Adam's saying, I'd rather die, but be able to live the way I want to live.
Right, okay. Yeah.
People are willing to die for causes. You know you're going to die. I can't live under Soviet oppression. I'd rather die to fight against it. So man said, I'd rather die against God's oppression. I'd rather die. This is not called living. Doing whatever he tells you when it's not good for you. Doesn't make any sense. And that has always been the struggle of mankind. Can we listen to God when right in front of your face, listening to God does not seem to be in your best benefit? It only seems to be somebody else's benefit and not yours. Giving tzedakah. Is giving 10% of your money for my benefit? No, siree. If I had another $10,000, I could have another vacation. I'm not going to give it to these poor people. I don't get anything out of it. Just because God told me to do it. Why should I do it? Right? It's not good. I need more. Yeah, but God will punish you. Well, too bad. This is a crazy loss. Make laws that make sense for me. That has been the test of mankind. That's been the mistake from the get-go. You'll notice that most averis that one does in life is for this reason. When God told Jews throughout history, don't work on Shabbos, and Jews in the early 1900s in America were told, if you don't work on Shabbos, you get fired. And they did get fired. So now the question is, are you willing to listen to God to do something that's not in your best interest or not? And guess what? A lot of people followed Adam's mistake. Plain and simple. Right? A lot of times God asks you to do things, you don't want to do them. Because it's not good for me. Now God, if you would just modify that, maybe we could discuss things. God says, there's nothing to discuss. I'm the king and I tell you what to do. Oh, I don't know if I could listen to that. That was the first mistake, and it'll be down to the last mistake. Right? So that's the problem. We're good so far? Yeah. This is where the world ended up after the sin of Adam. Now, obviously, you can understand now, if you have such a man, you can imagine what kind of son he had in Cain. Of course, you can understand why Cain would kill Hevel, because it's just not good for me to have my brother look like to be such a big tzaddik and me not. So that's, it breeds children to be like that. It just goes on. God says, I want you to have a lot of kids. And people say, that's not good for me. Having kids is a big financial thing, man. A kid now costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not good to have kids. Okay, I'll have one. One is good for me. Not 2, not 3, not 5, not 10. One is okay for me. So you know what kind of kid you're going to have? The kid's going to send you to an old home and say, you know what, you're a pain in the neck too. Now that you're 85 years old, Mom, you're costing me $100,000 a year. You can just send you on Medicare. Goodbye, I don't want to know from you. That's what happens. Okay, now we got to ask a question. What was Adam's mistake? Obviously, Adam was incorrect. What was the mistake of Adam? What's wrong with that thinking? Because Adam felt, listen, I got to be real. I got to be who I am. I have to self-actualize. Right? After all, Maslow says it's the highest level of pleasure. Right? Self-actualize. What he didn't understand is that total subservience to God is how you self-actualize. It's how you get your reality. Our reality is only when we are connected to reality. And there's only one reality in this world. God. You could argue till the cows go home. There's only one reality. God created the world. The whole world is on loan from God's power. As real as you think you are, you're being very foolish. Every ounce of strength you have comes from God. If we want to have a reality, it comes when we are connected to God. The premise of the tension involved in the wrong decision that Adam made, that tension that was there, is based on the concept that Adam was saying, listen, I have things to do, I have places to go that give me self-fulfillment. And if I have no fulfillment from what you're telling me to do, God, then I cannot do it. Now, what's that whole premise based on? It assumes that fulfillment is something we can find within ourselves. Right? And since fulfillment is something I can find within myself, you're asking me to do something that's taking away from opportunities to fulfill myself. What you're asking me to do is to destroy myself. And that's what man felt. But the problem is that premise is absolutely wrong. Self-fulfillment does not exist the way we think it exists. I got to be my own person. Listen, buddy, you aren't nothing to begin with. Right? You're nothing because God made you. You're nothing. God gave you a body. God gave you a soul. You're nothing. You're a zero. I have to self-actualize. It's nothing. The only way you will ever self-actualize is by being connected to something that is real. And there's only one real thing that exists, and that is God. So what God is trying to teach Adam is that if you connect yourself to me, then you will be real. Right? But if you feel you have to focus on your own sense of self-fulfillment, that's going to be wrong. Because yourself has no real fulfillment. A person cannot possibly fulfill himself because he doesn't have any real existence. The only thing that's real in the world is God. So, for a person to say, don't have anything to do with God and make something out of yourself is absurd because you're nothing. And the whole basis of existence is our deriving our existence from the source of existence, which is Hashem. That's the mistake. You understand? You understand what's going on? Everyone feels I got to be my own man. I got to be my own person. I got to feel I've accomplished. but you're trying to accomplish it within your own sense of self, where there's nothing there that's very real. You know, I got to make a lot of money. What do people spend their whole lives doing? Secular people. Making money. Why? So I could buy fancy things. Why? So people will know that I'm important. Why? What? That's all nourishment. So now people think you're rich. And now what? You've done something with your life? What have you done with your life? Hashem's giving you all this time and resources. What have you accomplished? What do you mean? I'm wearing fancy clothes. You know, this suit cost $3,000. I got in the Cayman Islands. Not everybody can do that. Somebody was telling me that when I came up from vacation somewhere in Italy, beautiful place, in one of these islands, and you got little fancy shops over there. The guy with a sport jacket, he asked what the price, $3,500 for a sport jacket. And there's a lot of Michiganers going out buying those sport jackets. Now, look at me. What? I don't see nothing. I just see you're a fool that you spend so much money on a sport jacket, because now you have prestige. Prestige is zero. Who thinks you're important? The guy who's laughing at you behind your back that you're an idiot to spend that money on it. What an idiot. I convinced him that the thing that cost me $10 to make, he paid $3,500 because he thinks he's important. Now I've self-actualized. I went to Italy and I worked like a dog to make this money to buy something I don't need that costs $3,500. Now that is really self-fulfillment. Right? That's why people have to take drugs, because they're so self-fulfilled. Right? That's not where you're going to find self-fulfillment. Because there's no reality in yourself, in and of yourself, without any connection to the source of reality, which is Hashem. If you're looking for fulfillment within your selfish, narcissistic being, you'll never find it. That's what King Solomon says. There isn't a person that will come with even half of what they want in their life. There's nobody who has what they want in life. You can't get self-fulfillment from yourself the way people think they can. Does that make sense? People, maybe you disagree, you could ask a question. Now's a good time to ask the question, because from this point we're just moving ahead. So if you don't like this premise, you're not going to like the rest of the class. Right?
But you still, so what's free will there for, really?
Your free will is to connect to the reality that you think is not good for you, but is good for you, to listen to Hashem. Okay? Your choice is, do you want to get fulfillment through God, or do you want to get it through yourself? The Yetzer Hara's job is to make you think that fulfillment to yourself is really fulfillment when it's not. He makes it look attractive, so you think it's fulfillment, but it's not. Fulfillment through connection to Hashem is the real deal. Is the real deal. That's the difference. That's the difference. There's only one thing in this world that's real, and that's God. Right? Right? How attractive or strong your body is not real. It's just a bunch of chemicals that Hashem whipped together and put you to be that way.
And where's Chava in all this? Was she tested in the same way, or she was just bad?
Oh no, it's almost similar. I don't want to get so much into the differences between them. But, and there's a lot to talk about. It really belongs in Bereshis. But this is the generic problem. This is a generic problem. All right? Where are you going to find happiness in life? From within or from without? And a person says, I have to be who I have to be. I have to find myself. I have to fulfill myself. Well, from where? From within myself. It ain't going to be. There's nothing within yourself that's going to be fulfilling. What are people doing? What do parents tell their kids? You better go to university and get a good education. Okay, why? Because you're going to make money. Why? So you can buy things in life. Why? So you have them. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Is that why I'm going sleepless nights trying to keep up a 4-point average in York University? My life is miserable so that I'll have money to buy a $3,500 suit that I don't need? And that's going to fulfill me?
Rabbi, certain people like Einstein and Fleming, they must have felt fulfilled when they invented and
good. Hang on to that thought. Very good. Excellent. Hang on to that thought, because that's going to be Noach. Hang on.
When Fleming, I think it was Fleming who discovered, was it penicillin?
Good. Okay, good. You're talking good. Okay, hang on. That's exactly that. It's almost as if I put a shill in the audience. It's exactly what I needed the next step to be. Very good. Hang on. Okay, good. You still have a question? You're good. Don't be afraid.
You're just saying, like, but that is the reality now. Not the $3,500 suit, but you just said yourself, a child costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I want to send my child to private, school. That's not free. And I don't want them to send their children.
So that means you'll have to live. That means you'll have to live. That means you have to live in a cheaper house.
They can go all the way down to a cardboard box.
I'm just saying. So why are you not having that other kid? Why are you not having that other kid?
I am. Look.
Okay, good. So what's the problem? No, I'm saying what's the problem?
No, you're saying why are we saying to our children to go to school to get? I agree that to sit here and say, I want to go to the best retirement home, I want you to buy me a house in Florida. That's not why we're sending them. But there is a reality that has been constructed now.
By who? By who?
Where we live. We have electricity bills.
I want to ask a question. I want to know why an elderly parent can't live with their kids.
They can, but you can't do it in a cardboard box.
No, but why can't they live with their kids?
Because their parents don't want to do. They want to. They want to help the kids, but they don't want to.
Why not? No, I'm just saying we're creating realities that don't have to be. And we're creating very expensive lifestyles that God never intended us to have.
Okay, for sure. But even the basics, though.
No, the basis. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. The basis is not a 4,000 square foot home.
No, sure.
But we all have them, and therefore we're struggling because we have them. And if we lived in smaller places, guess what? We wouldn't have to struggle so much. Would not have to struggle. So I'm sorry. If you don't have a $500,000 mortgage, then you can live in a smaller house. But we all feel if we'd have to live in an apartment, we would be suffering beyond belief. I'm just saying. We've created those realities, which are false realities. And that's why we made life difficult for us to live. And therefore we justify the decisions that we make. How is it that somehow, Jews in Yerushalayim and Jews in the poorest parts of Eretz Yisrael, they seem to have 8 kids. They all seem to get married. They all seem to get apartments. They all seem to be more spiritual than we are.
But
how do they manage?
Kosher food, Jewish education.
They have to do the same thing in Israel, and they're making a lot less money.
You wouldn't agree for me to say, I don't need to send my kids to Jewish education.
Again, the question is, what's your focus on? Okay, we're blurring a few things over here. I'm talking about people who are not connecting to God at all. You are. So you're mixing two ideas over here. We're talking about a person, God said, do this, and the guy said, okay, if you say to do it, I'm going to do it. Right? So now that I'm doing it, Hashem's going to be hard. Hashem says, just trust me, I'll take care of it. But Adam is saying, I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to wait to see what you can do. I'm going to just deal with what I got to do. That's the difference. Every Aveira we do is because we think if I listen to God, it's not going to be good for me. And I'm not going to listen to God do something that's good for me. That's the problem.
Can I just ask you, if Adam didn't eat from...
It's going to be a long class. Just keep that in mind. Go ahead.
And he knew what was good and bad and what was everything, he would still have free will choice. Not really, because he would only do what's good.
If he would have listened to God?
Yes, because you wouldn't have the wisdom, you would know what's good and bad, you would know, so you wouldn't really have the free, you'd kind of be more like an angel because you would just do what's good.
And that was the choice he made. I want to be like an angel, and he would have lived like an angel. And that would have been what Hashem wanted. Now he couldn't believe that would be good. What's Olam Haba going to be?
And I mean, what was the point of the earth, of Hashem creating that part of it?
As a test.
In a way.
As a test. This is the way the earth does. You want to follow what the earth does? The earth ain't going to Olam Haba, but because Olam Haba means not this earth. So this is the earth. The earth shows that it could live without listening to God. You want to be like the earth, you want to be like other things.
Would it just be like Olam Haba?
Would it Olam Haba right away? Right away, it's Olam Haba. I want to have more of a say of what it's like. Sometimes I'm not interested in what you have to say. You don't know what's good for you. I know what's good for you. That's the problem. Okay, let's move on, because I got to get to Noach, and they still got to get to Avram, so there's 2 more steps to go, and time is moving. So now, what have we said? The first man, selfish, narcissistic, looking for self-fulfillment within himself, doesn't work. So Noach understood that self-fulfillment is not the basis for decisions. He understood this mistake. He says you cannot focus on yourself, and whatever I'm going to say about Noach will apply to Fleming and all these guys. Okay?
But incidentally, Einstein said that Torah, that Hashem didn't write the Torah.
Good for him. He wasn't such a smart guy. Okay, anyway.
Sorry, Rob, who understood that? Noach understood that...
That self-fulfillment is not the basis of decisions. Adam said that is the basis of decisions. He says it's not the basis. You can't focus on yourself. And that's why the Pasuk says, this person will cause us to rest by the fact that the curse will go away. Why will the curse go away? Why will he cause us to rest? Just say Noach will rest. The answer is the greatness of Noach was, yes, there was technology. There was technology. Tuval Cain, hundreds of years ago, knew how to forge metals. But he made a big change to mankind. His contribution, which was positive, was we got to focus on other people too. The whole greatness of Noach was that he focused on other people and wasn't interested in himself. That was a big change to the world. The whole world ever says, I do what's good for me. Adam's sin was what? That he was interested in what was self-fulfilling. Noah's focus here is that he focuses on other people. Now, if you look carefully, Rashi says, until Noah came, people did not have plowing implements. And when Noah came along, what did he do? He made for them plowing instruments. Lahem, for them, not for himself. Look again in source 9, I underlined the Hebrew word lahem twice, and in the English I underlined for them. When Noach made the planting implements, it was for them. It was to make everybody else's life better, not to make his life better. And this now is the difference between Noach and Tuval Cain. Tuval, the word Tuval means to spice, to make stronger. Cain was the first murderer of the world. Tuval Cain forged metals. Let's think about it. I have a problem. Right now, when Tuval Cain came into the world, there was no metal instruments. He created metal instruments. People had a problem. People were plowing with their hands, right? That takes a lot of time. Now, there's two ways to solve that problem. One way is produce machinery that will expedite it, or produce weapons that will force others to do the work that I don't want to do. I know how to forge metal. I got two options. I can make everybody know how to plow. I can make a plow for everybody, and everybody can have their own farm. Or I can make guns, and I'm the only one, not a gun. I can make swords, and remember, they didn't have any of this. I can have a sword. I go to a guy who says, listen, you're going to plow my field, I'm going to chop your head off. I do that to 1,000 people, and they'll all plow my field. I don't have to do anything. There's two ways to take care of that problem. So, until now, they all produced guns. That was Tuval Cain. He spiced the profession of Cain. Resulted in 5,000 people being forced to work your farm. So even when there was technology, the focus was still on themselves, even with the technology. Once you're focused on your own needs, then that becomes, no matter how much technology is there, it's still for your own needs. Noah comes along, he says, why do I need to have inventions that only help me? Let me find inventions that will help other people. That was the Fleming of his generation, right? Noah will create in others how to benefit mankind, not in how Noah will work less, rather how will mankind be able to work less. So he invents tools that will help other people's lives. Interesting, Hitler, Yamach Shemo, used technology also. What did he use technology for? How to kill as many people as possible, and how to make super weapons of mass destruction that had not certain people defected, like Einstein and others, people like that. And if, God forbid, the Nazis would have won the war, life would have been a lot different. But that's how he used technology. So now you understand, beautiful now. God punished the earth to give thorns and thistles. Why? Because the earth said, I don't do what's not good for me. I don't care about what others want. I only do when it's good for me. And that was the punishment of the earth. Comes Noach, and we ask the question, just by inventing plows, did that make everything better? The answer is yes. Because by inventing plows, he made a demonstrative act to show I do things for others and not for myself. And that was the beginning of the correction. That was a quantum leap, a qualified change in the way a human being looked at the world. Fleming can only think what Fleming thought when there were people before him who thought about other people too. So he figures, I'll help other people too. He focused on the betterment of the world, and that's the beginning of the repair of the sin. The sin being that man only wants to do what's good for himself, and now he already broke out of that. You know what, I'll even do what's good for others. So that makes him a tzaddik, that he's done a quantum leap away from selfishness. Even when technology came in, what did people do? I'll make weapons. I can control it still just for me. Noach said, I'm going to take and make a farming implement so other people will benefit. I'm doing now. Is that going to be good for him? Not going to be good for him. Because if anything makes something, it only makes my farm grow and nobody else's. I'll become richer. No, it's going to help everybody. And if everybody gets help, it's probably not going to be as good for me as it could be for me. Two little guys, I'm going to make weapons. It's going to be better for me. So Noach broke out of, I only do things that work for me. And he broke out of that and says, I will do things that are even good for others. And this becomes the definition of menucha, rest. Menucha really means, what does menucha really mean? The ability to focus on a concrete reality. Menucha means bringing things to rest. A person that is connected to reality is at rest. He was beginning to connect to a bigger reality than himself, right? He can build an ark for 120 years because he's focused on other people. He's a great guy, no different than a scientist who's trying to find a cure for a disease. It's taking 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but you know what? It's going to help so many other people. Now, we have to congratulate Noach. That was an amazing step to take, to start thinking about other people. That's incredible. And you're a tzaddik for that. And you are Noach. You have menucha. You have a sense of rest. You have a sense of a more real reality than only thinking about yourself. So the question is, so what was the mistake? Still, he's not considered a Jew. So there's still something missing, right? Still something missing with Fleming. Not that he's bad, God forbid, but Fleming could never be a Jew. Why? Or even Einstein, who is a Jew, but didn't know what it meant to be a Jew. He's building an ark. Why is he building an ark? Because he wants to save the whole world. He cares about other people, right? How's that going to be? They're going to come to the table, we'll join you in the ark. We believe that God is going to make a flood, and he's building the ark to help mankind. He's a humanitarian. He was a humanitarian. He invented farm equipment that made the world better for everybody. A nice man. He's a tzaddik. He's building an ark. Why? Because God's going to make a flood. Millions are going to die. The only thing I can do is make a big ark, and people are going to live. What could be better? Isn't he a great guy? But he's still not interested in changing and bettering the other people by connecting them to God. His sense of reality is connecting them to something that's bigger than him, to the world. That's certainly bigger, and that's why the Torah calls him an ish adamah, a man of the earth, a man of the world, a humanitarian. His whole focus is that the physical world and all its inhabitants are the reality. In other words, really, there's three realities. The first reality is my whole life is that's the only reality. Me is my reality. And we said that's the dumbest thing in the world because you're going to have zero reality. So what's the next step better than that? I'm not the whole reality. The whole world is the reality. That's a much bigger reality than me. Okay? And therefore, since he has that, we're all going to jump in the table, we're all going to be saved. And he did that as a humanitarian. But what was he still missing? He wasn't interested in changing their spiritual reality. He is interested in giving everybody some kind of reality. He's grounded because everything is in the universe, but it's still lacking. Because even that seems to be more real is still not real. It seems to be more real. In other words, Fleming says, I'm going to do something that's makes mankind better, which is better, no question about it, for a non-Jew, but it's still not real enough. If, let's say, the whole world doesn't believe in God, then they're all disconnected from the truest reality that exists. I can make people's lives physically better, but am I really giving them reality? I give them a cure that they won't have. What was the cure for? The penicillin. So a person gets a flu, they won't die. That's nice. I'm not saying that's not nice. We're not saying it's not humanitarian. But are you really making their lives better? They're still not in touch with reality, because the real reality is God. If Fleming would be using his research in trying to get people to do tshuva, to connect to God, then he would give them the real reality that people are looking for. Abraham was different. He wanted to connect people to God. Abraham understood not that man is grounded in the world, but that the earth is grounded in man, and man, by connecting himself to God, that grounds everything else in the world. The question is, what's your starting point? What's your ending point? Man's first man's mistake is, I'm the beginning and I'm the end. I'm everything. Well, that's definitely wrong. Noach says, it's not me. There's a bigger world out there. We got to be connected to the bigger world, which is an improvement because you're getting out of yourself. There's two problems with Adam's first sin. He's into himself and not into God. So now, Noach says, you got to stop being into yourself, man. You got to worry about, there's a bigger reality out there. The world. Making a contribution to civilization. Now that's very good insofar as getting you out of yourself, but you're still missing the real reality of connecting to the truest reality, which is Hashem. Okay? And that's where he falls short, and he cannot become a Jew. Without this connection to Hashem, you don't get that reality. That ultimate reality does not happen. Yeah?
Doesn't Hashem kind of steer Adam away from connecting to him by saying that now he's going to be cursed by having to labor the land?
No, God's going to say, this is the result of your choice.
Right. So
this is the result.
That was his choice. So now
you saw not listening.
Curse or whatever.
So you see that not listening to me wasn't such a good choice.
Right. So then what's Adam supposed to do at this point?
So now, okay. So he's supposed to do tshuva and to learn. I made a mistake. And by working now, you're going to see that you're going to need God even 10 times more. That's what he was hoping man would see, and he refused to see that.
It's almost like a physical punishment for a spiritual.
Yeah, but now you got to live in that reality. You got to live in that reality, and now the whole growth that can come through trying to make your part. You try to make your part and see where it really comes from, Buster. You're going to work hard all day. You're going to get nothing unless you pray to me, and I'm going to give you blessings.
I think you're going to make him learn it the hard way.
You know what? You got so much free time. The problem was he had so much free time. He didn't use it wisely. He got into himself. Now that you don't have free time, you're not going to. There's less chance for you to get into yourself. But man didn't listen to that either. Right? So it didn't work. Hashem said, "This is the only way you're going to get out of this. You're going to see what it means to eat, to make your own living, to eat by the sweat of your brow. You're going to see what it means. You're going to see how much you really need me." And he still refused to see him. What I'm going to do? I'm going to beat up on other people to do what I need. It's going to be so hard now. You have to pray to me. I'm not going to pray to you. I'm going to invent guns and make people do my work. Instead of you saying, you see it didn't work. Come on to me a little bit. I'll help you out. No, what am I going to do? I'll just beat up other people and control the rest of the world. Why should I give in to you? That's what happened. Okay, so there's no contradiction in Noach. He's an Ish Adamah. His reality is this world. He wants the world to be a better place to live, a healthier place, a better environment. And for a non-Jew, that's good. That's good. That's all God wants from non-Jews in the world. Right? And, he's not focused on himself. God doesn't want non-Jews to be focused on themselves. He doesn't want non-Jews to not be focused on anything. But the tragedy is his understanding that the world is the reality. It's like these David Suzuki guys. Right? They think that the world is the reality. The Indians, the we can't call them Indians now. What do you call them? Native Americans, Aboriginals. They believed that the earth was their reality. The Native Americans, they worshipped the earth because the earth was real. And we have to be sensitive to the earth because we come from the earth. It's not just us. We can't destroy earth. That's all good if you're a non-Jew. Because a non-Jew doesn't have a godly soul and isn't capable of doing much more than that. And maybe saying, yeah, and it is from God, but that's it. That's all. And that's really what the Mesilas Yesharim says. And this is where the difference is between a Jew and a non-Jew. You look at the last source, the Mesilas Yesharim. This is the root of everything. Our sages of blessed memory have taught us that man was created for the sole purpose of rejoicing in God and deriving pleasure from the splendor of His presence. For this is true joy and the greatest pleasure that can be found. That's the real source of reality. That's the real joy, is connecting to the real source. The real source is Hashem. And in truth, no reasoning being can believe that the purpose of man's creation relates to his station in this world. No one with a brain in his head could say you were created to live in this world. For what is a man's life in this world? Who is truly happy and content in this world? The days of our life are 70 years, and if exceedingly vigorous 80 years, and their persistence is but labor and foolishness, says King David. How many different kinds of suffering and sicknesses and pains and burdens, and after all this, death! Ha ha! What a great life! Not 1 in 1,000 is to be found to whom the world has yielded a superabundance of gratification and true contentment. The only real pleasure is connecting to the true reality, which is Hashem. That's the only true reality. The reality is the starting point where everything has to flow from there. So Noach wants to connect to something beyond himself. He wants to improve the world, but he stops short. He does make a qualitative improvement to the world as switching away from being self-serving to go beyond oneself, but the beyond is still short of where it should take you to the ultimate source of reality, which is Hashem. And if you get to that source, then you really have the greatest self-fulfillment, because it's the godly soul inside you that can become fulfilled. Avram understands that the only reality is Hashem. And he tries to lift man to that reality. He's trying to lift the world to that reality. So this is the where we place Noach. Noach really feels comfortable outside of himself, being part of this world. And therefore, he really doesn't see himself much different than the animals. And therefore, the raven and the lion, they feel their buddies with this guy. He's part of the world. Okay, that's as far as you go. So the tiger and the raven are part of this world as well. So he's at rest because he's not conflicted. He's like Fleming. He wants to make the world better. And for a non-Jew, that's fine. Remember, God doesn't expect everybody to go further. Now, he does, but when God created the world, He did create it for a much grander purpose. What's the grander purpose? To give man the ultimate pleasure of going and finding the truest reality, which is beyond himself, which is connecting to Hashem. That's the truest reality. That's why Hashem made the whole world. He didn't make the whole world just that people should be nice to each other, not to connect to the ultimate pleasure that they can have, and that is only by knowing that there's a deeper, true reality, which is Hashem. Avram took it a step further. He says there's something much more important than just plowing and making sure people have physical sustenance, which is nice, and you have to take care of that. But why are you falling short? There's something so much more delicious than that. And that is giving them the pleasure of connecting to spirituality, which is God. And that's what Avram does. And that's the difference in a Jew and a non-Jew. We're qualitatively different people with a different focus. We're a non-Jew who tries to find a cure for cancer because he really cares about other people. That's very nice. But even the non-Jew, if they want to go to the world to come, the Rambam says, but they still have to keep the 7 Noachide laws, don't they? There's still 7 Noachide laws. You still got to know that there is a God to some extent that is the ruler of the world, and you're in His planet. You got to follow His laws. Right? You got to do that. But then there's a whole new realm of the pleasure of connecting to God, connecting to the truest reality. So Noach could say, I feel fulfillment in life. The world is a better place. That's okay. You're right. You did make a contribution. We'll go put a section of the Torah for you. I'm not going to minimize what you did. Compared where Adam came from, to take the world to that place, Yasher Koyach, you did a great thing. But you know what? You could have taken it farther. And Avram went and took it farther. And that contribution is far greater than what Noach did. Because now, see, what Noach connected them was just to a better finite reality. At the end of the day, Mr. Non-Jew, when you die and there's nothing left of you. Avram wanted to connect people to an eternal reality. Isn't that a bigger kindness? To make somebody have a comfortable life for the 80 years and when they die they're finished. Or to give them a life of meaning, of connecting to God. And when they die, they have eternal existence. You tell me what's a better humanitarian thing to do. If I have the ability to use my brains to alleviate temporal stress or to create eternal reality, what would be better for mankind? If all the geniuses of the world would get together and say, how can we use our brains to connect them to God? With all their brain power, they could maybe succeed. And wouldn't that really make the world a better place? After all is said and done, with all the nice inventors of the world, we're still killing each other. Because you know why? You haven't brought God into the picture. So the theoretical question, if you could do $1 billion donation for the cure for cancer, or $1 billion for the cure of why people don't want to connect to God, where should you give the money? Well, what will do the biggest bang for the buck? If you find a cure for cancer, you've only alleviated physical stress. If you find a cure for people running away from God, you've given them the fountain of eternal life. You cure a person from cancer, they'll live another 10, 15 years, they die, there's still lunch for the worms. And they have no reality afterwards. It's better than not living another 15 years. But if I can let them... the problem is it's a much worse terminal disease. It's called life. And the rate of mortality is 100%. Every human being dies. And without good research, they will die permanently. Now, research, as Avram did research, and said, I want people to connect to eternal life. Isn't that an infinitely greater kindness? It doesn't get you a lot of coverage in the newspaper. Not a lot of wow factor. But that's what it is. That's what it is. And that's what Avram was telling us. He took that next step. The contribution to the growth of the world isn't, just the physical world being better. It's got to be a spiritual reality that's better. And that's what it means to be part of the Jewish people. By definition, a Jew by definition thrives through that connection to God. That's way beyond himself, way beyond this world. That is the greatest pleasure that a person can have. And Avram wanted people to have that connection. And that's why Noach is a nice man, but a tragic figure insofar as he couldn't take the world past that point. That's what we see. Yeah, questions?
So it says that Noach started as an Ish Tzaddik. Does that mean
he is a tzaddik?
Did he have the potential?
The tzaddik, he was a tzaddik that he cared about others. That was a tzaddik. That was a tzaddik. But an Ish Adamah, but it only went as far as the earth. He couldn't take it beyond the earth. And this has lots more ramifications. Lots more. We're talking about on the Monday night class. When you say that a non-Jew is kind and a Jew is kind, there's two different realities. A non-Jewish kindness is based on the definition of kindness in a physical sense, grounded in the earth, which is very limited. Jewish kindness is divine kindness. Divine kindness, which maybe in another class we'll explain, is way beyond human kindness. Non-Jews are not capable of divine kindness because they don't know that there's a divine. A Jew who has a godly soul is capable of divine kindness. So Noah was kind, but not divinely kind. Now, you're right, and I'm just saying terms that you just have to trust me on. But there's it's an incredible difference between being kind to save a person's temporal life and to save his eternal life. Isn't that a divine kindness? How you do kindness is altogether different. That's the different sphere that the Jewish people find themselves on.
There are many Jews, you hear stories all the time about the Holocaust survivors who live in Israel, and they've created factories that make amazing technological things, and they've improved the world, improved everything, but they're secular Jews. So
therefore,
they are like...
They're like Noach.
No.
But now you can take that same... There are Jews who survived the war, like the Satmarov, like other great rabbis, who gave Jews back their souls. What's the greater contribution? I'm not saying we don't need to have factories to make money. You need to have that. I'm not denying that. But if you stop at that point, wouldn't it be good if he'd build that factory and say, you know what, and now I want every day we should all thank God for the blessings that he gave us. What would it cost them? How much would there be less output of the factories?
They're probably thanking God by making huge donations. But they're
not thanking God. They're just they're giving donations
in their name.
But that's the difference. There again, are you sanctifying the world or are you sanctifying God? Are you looking at the world, and that's as far as you go? So the non-Jewish mind says, I got to make a contribution to the world. That's good for a non-Jew. That's good for a non-Jew. I'm happy for them. But a Jew shouldn't be satisfied with that. Eternal existence is going to come from that. It's going to come when you take it one step further. And that comes back to your point much earlier, Gully. Yes, we got to help Jews that they should be able to pay the Jewish education. But it's got to be so that they connect them to Hashem, not just that they are Jews. Yeah. There's a reason why you got to make the money to send them to school. And this is the part that even the frum people are forgetting. You're making the money to send them to Jewish school, and even in Jewish school they don't know that being a Jew means you're connected to God. How many of the kids really feel a beautiful connection to Hashem? And all that, hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're working so hard to send them to a Jewish school, but they still, when they grow up and they come to davening, they want to finish the first one and get out of here. I don't want to spend more than I have to talking to God. That means you're missing the boat. That's that. But you're right. You help. It's a big chesed to help somebody to have a parnas, to have a job. But you got to make that next step, and therefore he is able to connect to Hashem. He does. Yeah, person who's poor, he's financial stress. I can't go to shul. I can't think about anything because I don't have bread on the table. He says, fine, I'll help you. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll help you. I'll give each other this. But you know what? There's going to be a cost for it. What? A cost for God? Yeah. I want you to thank God for it. I want to use your blessings now to help God to make the world the way God wants it to be. So that could be the string. Avram gave with that string attached to connect them to God. And that is the real reality. And that's what makes you a Jew, and that takes us different than a goy. Okay, shkoyach for a little extra.